After beating rivals Man United and then Napoli in the Champions League, Man City were on the cusp of claiming maximum points in Sunday's Premier League showdown with Arsenal at the Emirates. Erling Haaland scored a superb early opener, but despite City's best efforts to hold on for a slender victory, Gabriel Martinelli scored in the 93rd minute to rescue a 1-1 draw for the Gunners, denying City a victory at the Emirates. Stephen, I don't think anyone would have predicted Man City to play in the way they did, to defend in the way they did. It was an unusual game, but an entertaining one that ultimately ended up with City conceding at the death. What did you make of City's performance, and what have you taken away from that result at the Emirates?
I think the best way to approach this is try and remove how the draw happened, away from it. I think the fact that it was a late equaliser makes it sting an awful lot more. And for a good 20, 30 minutes after the game, I couldn't really process how I felt about it too, because the pain of the late equaliser, yeah, it definitely took the gloss off the performance a little bit, but it didn't change what the performance was, in my opinion, which was an admission of deficiencies in places, but also a show of strength in other areas, and probably a very necessary step towards where Manchester City are heading right now. I spoke to you, of course, on these videos last week, saying how I wasn't most optimistic about this game, because Arsenal, I feel, are a better side than Manchester City right now for various reasons. City are in a massive period of transition. That City side. I mean, I'm going to look at it right now. I can't remember how many numbers off the top of my head, but yeah. Well, a year ago, Rodri wouldn't have been there. Well, because he got injured. Foden was in and out of the team injured. O'Reilly, Kusanov, Donnarumma, Doku in and out of the team. Reinders. There's several changes from the starting lineup. Then you look at the bench as well. Several new players. Yeah, this City side's one in flux. Where Arsenal, new players, of course, but much more stable. Structure to their side and how they play. And coming into this side, into this game with boosted by new signings, and looking confident and with something to prove still, many would argue, just much more set in their ways. So I was nervous that this game was going to be a month too soon for Manchester City. Probably still is. But what I felt was that this was another step in the right direction for City. It wasn't a performance full of vigor and like zest and creativity and flair. In fact, it was something that we've not seen, and we were chatting just before we were recording this. It's something we haven't seen from City for an awful long time. Just dogged defensive resilience. Like this City, the City's main problem of the past year has been, for want of a better phrase, a lack of spine. It really has. It's been a really flimsy Manchester City side, and it's been unrecognisable from the dogged, brilliant side that we saw in the treble season, which was only a couple of years ago now. But that was a side built on ability, of course, but also just stubborn defensive awkwardness, like strong, fierce, organised, structured. Well, I'm not saying this side is anywhere near that level. It clearly isn't. But defensively, we showed signs of that again. And that, to me, is as much as I want to see City keep the ball, I don't think we can yet to the level. I just think we can't. So seeing another side to City, one that can actually band together and keep that focus. It's only focused for 93 minutes, whatever it was, unfortunately. We switched off a little bit. But keep that focus with such a new side and so many changes. I found it really encouraging. We've shown a different way to play. And you have to also look at the context of the game. 2.5 days to prepare for the game. Arsenal had 5 days. Sounds like an excuse, but it's a matter of fact. This early on in the season with multiple players out, Arsenal at home, much more longer to prepare. City off the back of a trip to Napoli against the Italian champions, a good win there. Manchester Derby a few days early, a good win there. And when you put all that together, and you look at the context of City losing to Brighton and Spurs painfully as well, if you'd told me a week ago that we'd be sat here with 7 points from 9 winnable points, it's two different competitions, but you know what I'm getting at. I would have absolutely bitten your hand off for that. That's a really good return from where City are. And each game has shown different aspects of why the City side are moving in the right direction. Three unchanged lineups, a real sense of unity amongst the sides, and I know it was weird to see City essentially park the bus. Pep parking the bus is just a mental headline, but he did that by his own admission as well afterwards. But that's the pragmatism you need to be a great manager. And seeing Guardiola do that, I actually like it, because if he's willing to do that, what else is he willing to do? If he's willing to throw his entire principles out the window, though I'm not sure he is. I think he's just accepting right now that we have limitations. But it means he's very aware of where the side's at. And he said afterwards. We're lacking a bit in the counter press, we're lacking in the build up. But he really loved to see the team spirit, and that's what he wanted to see. He wants to see the teammates working for each other. He wants to see them enjoying their football, and importantly for me, and I'm going to end this point here, I wanted to see him enjoy defending again. I've not looked at him that way since Diaz came into the side, and all of a sudden City found a spine again a few years back, and Diaz looked like he taught John Stones to remember how to enjoy defending, and City looked like a different side. To me, Donnarumma's influence cannot be underestimated there because that back line is enjoying defending, and they're all patting each other's backs and slapping each other's asses and big old bromance hugs. But that is a good sign because they're cheering on every tackle, high fiving each other after every header, and they're enjoying it. And I was amazed at the focus of the young fullbacks as well. Looking at Nico Riley and Kusanov, neither are fullbacks, but just being so focused. Yeah, I think it's easy to sit there and go full circle back to the start of the point and go, "Oh, we lost 3 points in the last minute." But when you look at the context of everything, I actually think City will be in a good place today, and I think rightfully so. I don't think we can get caught down in the weeds too much about how they equalised because it was a bit of a switch off. But I think we have to look at the positives, and I think there's plenty to take given where City are just a week ago to where they are now.
Yeah, and so do you think then, obviously, point piece in the end, who do you think's coming away with the better result then? Was a point more valuable for City or Arsenal, or is it pretty even? What do you think about that?
No, I think City. I think most City fans will take a point at Arsenal, and I think Arsenal are already looking at Liverpool 5 points clear. And I know we're now like what 8 points
Eight
behind or
points, yeah.
whatever. Yeah, which is
Mm.
ridiculous. But ultimately, Arsenal won't be happy at home that they couldn't really break down City. It was they couldn't, and look, they did. Technically, they did, but we had them at arm's length easy until the only mistake we made all game defensively, stepping too high. The offside track was a little bit disjointed, but 93rd minute of the game, they just made a mistake, and it took a sublime goal, perfect through ball. Perfect finish, a world class finish, and a world class through ball, which was great, and they'll take that. But largely, we frustrated them, and I don't think they'll be happy about it. This is them meant to be their big title push after spending hundreds of millions of pounds, and they are 5 points behind Liverpool, and they've suffered against they dropped points against Liverpool, and they dropped points against City, two of the big rivals. So I don't think they'll be in a good place from that. I think they'll be frustrated. Where City, okay, I know we showed that we're potentially inferior to them right now, but I think we know that they're meant to be better than us, and they want to win that at home. And I think that is going to be the only game of the season that we suffer in the way that we did in that game in terms of where we can't get the ball. Arsenal are the only team that's going to do that to us, have 70% against us. No one else can do that against City right now, to that level, because Arsenal are just better right than anyone at that in the league right now. So I think if you look at it in isolation, I think City will be much happier with that point than Arsenal will be because of the context, because of the short rest time, because of where we were, because of all the changes, and because I think Arsenal really wanted that win. And as much as we did, look, you take a point at Arsenal these days where City are.
Yeah, and going back to sort of that approach that Guardiola took, this more defensive approach, parking the bus, if you like, how surprising was it to see that from a Guardiola team, to see City have as low as 34% possession, which was the lowest percentage of the total percentage that Guardiola's have had in his career in the Premier League. How surprising was that, and how likely do you think it is for City to adopt that approach again in future games?
Surprising. Yeah, very surprising actually. The thing is as well, we have to remember that there was a reason for it as well. It's not like City weren't we went 1-0 ahead after 10 minutes. So City had every reason to we tried, of course, but it wasn't like we were just you turned up, sat back and looked for a point. We were winning and it was pretty even. Like we were winning and we still in that game, the two best chances in my opinion felt at City. Like so. Haaland threw a goal at one point. If he squares that over to Foden, it's a tap in. Arsenal, is a wonderful goal, but City, I think, still had the slightly better, bigger chances. And for all the talk of Arsenal's possession, I didn't feel like we were holding on. Like there's times where Liverpool have come out of City in previous years when City have been a much better side than they are now. Liverpool have assaulted City. They've been all over them. They've been aggressive, and it's terrifying. And you were watching peak Salah, peak Sane, peak Firmino, all those guys just run all over you aggressively, and you're clinging on. And we probably had a better defense than we've got now. In terms of individuals and so on. That was terrifying because they had a lot of the ball then, but a lot of fear. it wasn't the same as that. For whatever reason, it felt like Arsenal were just like offered really nothing until they got the ball out for a corner. And then we defended them all perfectly anyway. The corners were wonderfully defended. So it was weird to see City lose, lose so much of the ball. But it's not surprising. Like I think it's been obvious to me and anyone paying attention to City and probably yourself too that we're not quite as fluid as we used to be at the moment. A lot of it's down to Rodri. Rodri's still finding his rhythm. Reinders is, he's getting used to that. He's obviously much more of a counter-attacking player. Bernardo Silva is not the Bernardo Silva of old. So we are like lacking a little bit in the build. I think it'll get better. Well, it will get better. There's no way that a City side that plays in the way that they do with more experience and more rhythm and another 2-3 months of processes in the training ground and repetition and Guardiola fixing it. He's already fixed the defense by the looks of it, so I don't see why the other stuff won't get better. Yeah, so look, there's one thing on Guardiola's side. Guardiola knows that coach is possession. I'm not worried about that. Like I was worried about the other bits, but Guardiola will get it right. He'll find a balance where the players know how to keep the ball and build it up because that's the one thing Guardiola has done better than anyone ever probably in football history. Full stop. So we will get there. It's just almost a necessary evil to accept that there are limitations right now, and I actually quite admired the balls of it for City to actually go, well, we'll try and keep the ball, but other than that, you're just not going to get past of us. And I think this it's a rare side you see for City, but I don't know. I think they'll take a lot of pride from that, because it was a dig in and do the job kind of thing, and. I don't think the players obviously disappointed for dropping 2 points, but they didn't look disappointed in their attitude and in themselves as a team. So as much as it's a negative that Arsenal kept more of the ball, I don't think we ever felt like we were out of the game. I can't sit there and say that with honesty. And like, I'm not just saying that with blue tinted specs. Though they are literally slightly blue tinted because of the computer ones, but but they're genuinely. I just felt like City were reasonably comfortable, and as I said, we could have scored a second goal quite early on, and Doku, had a decent chance at the end where he skinned Gabriel and poked it past. And like, I don't think they were any more threatened than us. They just had you have all the ball if you want, you're not going to do anything with it. So, and it showed a new side. So yeah, yeah, it's surprising, but maybe not because Pep seemed to accept it.